Hello and welcome to the latest NatChat podcasts. I'm your host, Ashley Georgeson, and I'm joined today by Deepak and Chris from ThousandEyes. Now, in a world where it seems that every service we use is dependent on cloud and where IT no longer controls all of their infrastructure, how do we understand the customer's digital supply chain and assure their digital experiences? Well, today we're with ThousandEyes, who are best placed to answer some of those questions. So, Chris Ware and Deepak Ravi, thank you for joining us. Please, could you introduce yourselves?
Thanks, Ashley. Good to see you as always. So, for the audience, my name is Chris Wart. I am a channel sales specialist here, working closely with our partners, Natilic. I've been with the company for about 6 years. I would say that's probably about enough of me. I'll hand over to Deepak and we'll get into the detail later.
Hey, Ash. This is my second time on a podcast, so I'm pretty pumped about this. This is I'm actually the colleague that works alongside Chris as the technical solutions architect at ThousandEyes. Again, been here 6 years. It's been a fun journey.
Yeah, it's great to have you guys on. I'm very excited because we've definitely got the right people to talk about something that I think pretty much every single client conversation that I have, this touches on and really impinges their strategy across pretty much everything. How they're consuming applications, how they're traversing the modern networks, how the move to hybrid working, it touches on everything. So I think we've definitely got the right topic to talk about today. Chris, for those of our listeners that don't really understand that observability market of experience monitoring, can you maybe address some of those challenges that ThousandEyes actually seeks to resolve?
Yeah, great question, Ash. I've heard a couple of times over the last few days some quite interesting anecdotes, and kind of the good news is ThousandEyes does a lot of things. Equally, the bad news is ThousandEyes does a lot of things, so it's quite difficult actually to categorize or pigeonhole what ThousandEyes is. So in terms of observability, it's, if you forgive me the analogy, it's a ThousandEyes as a platform is a little bit like a Swiss Army knife, is it can pretty much adapt to customer digital experience, employee digital experience, remote worker digital experience, network visibility, internet visibility, cloud visibility, etc., etc. So it does a lot of things. I think just to describe the platform a little bit, ThousandEyes is a SaaS-based platform. So we collect our telemetry into our SaaS platform through the concept of agents or vantage points. Some on-prem, some on user machine, some out in cloud, dependent on use case. And that telemetry is made available to the customer in question for all of the tests, all of the visibility of what they want to see from the local environment, the wide area network environment, cloud environment, all of those things that we said. We're genuinely seeing increased success, and by the way, I talk about increased success on the basis that for some of the audience, they'll be aware that ThousandEyes was acquired by Cisco back in 2020. Just to give you an idea, our customer count in 2020, after about 9 or 10 years of trading, was around about 600 paying customers. I'm pleased to say that moving into 2024, so within 3-4 years, we're now at about 2,200. So the reality is customers are buying this. It has very much been an enterprise play, but what's even more interesting now is ThousandEyes as a visibility platform or observability platform is really coming down into commercial, into public sector, into a whole raft of environments that we probably didn't really envisage, probably in the early days when Deepak and I joined, right? So that's good news.
Great summary. Thank you, Chris.
My pleasure.
I'd probably add to that when I heard of the Cisco acquisition, I probably thought it was the best decision that Cisco ever made, having used the ThousandEyes platform before. And they probably snipped it up at a ridiculously bargain price of, I think it was $1 billion. So, yeah, what a bargain. And well, the reason I thought it was such a fantastic acquisition is obviously Cisco have fantastic heritage in the networking space. And we know that ThousandEyes, being the SaaS platform, is completely agnostic to the network. It can run on any cloud, any network. But for me, being a network engineer of old, and for those that are watching the video, you can see I'm wearing the Meraki t-shirt. I was interested to see how we could leverage ThousandEyes into that portfolio to add more value and to make the sum greater than the parts. And so, yeah, Deepak, I'd like to understand a bit more about the Meraki integration that ThousandEyes and Cisco have been working on.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back in the past 3.5 years of the Cisco acquisition, we've kind of been embedding across the Cisco ecosystem. And this is one of the big integrations that we've accomplished. So essentially, going forward, right, the ThousandEyes enterprise agent can be deployed on MX boxes. I believe this is MX75 plus, versions. Of course, we need to make sure that the right memory requirements, hardware requirements were in place. But this means the MX boxes that people get for SD-WAN, routing, security, right, can be a great vantage point to get all of the cool visibility that ThousandEyes provides.
Right. And so you talk about the additional visibility it will provide. What are sort of the key values you think that a Meraki user today will be able to get from that? Is it like it's because it's integrated, it's very easy to set up? What would be the sort of killer use case you would see here?
Yeah, I mean, you said it, right? So in today's world, if you think about an average customer, they have assets they own, and then they have assets they don't own. And ultimately, there's a certain proportion of mix of assets they own and assets they don't own that defines their digital experience. So what this means is today, Meraki actually, I was actually surprised when I came onto the Cisco world to see what kind of insights Meraki is already able to deliver on some of the flows that go through the MX and some of the SNMP statistics it provides. There's a lot of insights also it's able to provide from an HTTP standpoint, a network standpoint, etc. But the Meraki insights and the MX health dashboard is very much focused today on the users within the campus or within the WAN. However, as soon as traffic starts to go outside into the third-party ISP land, the MPLS land, and ultimately into SaaS services, cloud services, the visibility starts to become very, very limited. And that's the sweet spot ThousandEyes is really looking to add value in. So if you and what ThousandEyes does really well is to be able to provide insights on these third-party infrastructures, third-party vendors, third-party providers, as if your customer owned them. So this is the magic that ThousandEyes is able to add to Meraki's users. And to just give you an example, if you think about these retail stores, right? Typically retail companies are big Meraki users, and they typically have stores across different locations. They're hitting payment gateways. They're all breaking out typically through sometimes DIA, and some payment gateways are not in your local data center. They're often they're hosted in third-party cloud provider networks, and you want to make sure that every payment goes through. And with the Meraki insights that's already available, you're able to know how is the local environment doing, how is the store doing, how is the branch doing. But if you need insights on how an ISP provider in the middle or how the payment gateway provider is probably having a problem, that's where ThousandEyes comes in and is able to provide that data-driven evidence.
Right. So essentially, just to, I guess, summarize for myself, we're getting that end-to-end visibility for service assurance. So we can quickly identify where we've got significant dependencies on critical services that the business relies upon. We can actually see that experience from the user's perspective end to end, not just on like within the LAN. We can see that over cloud services provider solutions, over ISPs, which allows us to, as an IT operations team, quickly identify that problem domain and I guess reduce that time to innocence in essence. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%, right? It's data-driven evidence, mean time to innocence or mean time to resolution, and being able to be proactive, right? And some of your listeners might already know that ThousandEyes is a synthetic platform, right? So it's able to, as opposed to the Meraki analytics platform, which relies on real user traffic to flow through the pipes for the most part, ThousandEyes takes an active synthetic approach, which means before even, in that retail example, before even the payments are going through, before even the stores being used, you have ThousandEyes agent telling you what kind of performance to expect, what kind of ISP issues are already in there. So the IT teams can react to problems before they hit the service desk. And that's really the value here.
Right. So you said an interesting word there, synthetics. So can you maybe explain what we can, I guess, the capability of what we could actually test? You mentioned payment gateways. Can we actually test running a payment through?
Oh yeah. So the cool thing about ThousandEyes is, we've got a variety of test layers, if you can call that you can play with. So for example, if you're talking about applications, you can test VoIP traffic. You could test web pages. You could for a payment gateway. What we'd have is a brand new test type called the API test type. So this is very much focused on hitting payment gateway APIs and getting certain response codes. And you can even build a whole sequence of API API transactions within a specific journey. So which means you're not just measuring network performance, you're actually measuring the performance of how quickly a web page is responding from the server, how quickly is the payment gateway server responding. So you can go much more than the network, and this means you're able to correlate across multiple layers. So for example, in that example, two examples, there was a payment gateway service, and then there's the network that connects the retail stores to the payment gateway service. So you have this one place which tells you, hey, here's the payment gateway response time. Here's how the network is performing. And when something goes wrong, you're able to connect the dots and say, hey, this ISP provider had congestion, which caused the slowness of the payment gateway response. That's how this whole piece works together.
Yeah, it's really powerful, and I wish I had this back when I was running retail environment migration. It would have saved a lot of pain. Let's put it that way. I guess, yeah. Thank you for that deep dive. More broadly, maybe back to you, Chris. Are there any sort of recommendations you could give to our listeners that are thinking about their observability strategy and how this could fit into it?
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't say there was one size fits all, but for the audience, certainly for those that are in IT ops, net ops, sec ops, something like that, I would make sure that for getting the best value out of ThousandEyes is number one, approach with a view of what we would call a proof of value. So proof of values are really key to us as a business. We want to make sure that we are valuable to the customer outcome. Number one. So pick a use case that has value. Things like WebEx, Microsoft Teams, SAP, Salesforce.com, etc., right? Because we're, as Deepak explained, we're effectively emulating users, developing synthetic users or initiating synthetic users to get that visibility. So we need an app, we need a target. From there on in, I would say, be very, very clear, very, very concise about what the problem statement is and what does good look like. And for us as a business, together with Natilic, we will define what that proof of value looks like with the customer in question, what an outcome, what does good look like, and we will drive to that. And the really, really good news as well is by the very way that we deploy our agents and the very way we collect data, proof of values, once set up, which typically no more than an hour, often much less than that, and much less than that. But as soon as they're set up, they're delivering data. So our proof of values are very quick, often less than a month, quite often less than 2 weeks. So be very, very clear what the use case is, what the problem statement is, understand what the success criteria is. What I will say is this is not a technology that bodes well just for what I would call tire kicking. We'll see what it's like. Be prescriptive, really understand what's the challenge you're trying to solve, what's the project. That challenge could be intermittent pain from applications, or it could be, for example, an intention to acquire a new company, get visibility on that new estate. It could be we want to move workloads from the data center up to cloud. We want to know what that looks like. What kind of things are we dealing with between us and that cloud provider? SD-WAN benchmarking, cloud baselining, proactive and reactive use cases. So really engage. Let's be very clear and let's understand what is the art of the possible.
On that,
right? I guess
just one thing, Ash.
I knew he was going to correct me.
No, this is actually something very interesting, Chris, that you mentioned, right? Especially with the Meraki MX agent, the speed to POV is really, really quick. And the reason is because the MX-based enterprise agent is one of the fastest ThousandEyes enterprise agent deployments to date, which means today, in fact, if your company has Meraki MX on either Advanced Sec or SD-WAN Plus license, you already have a limited amount of ThousandEyes today to get going. So there is no payment required. There is no license required for you to get started. So, there's no need to wait, and you can get that value quite quickly with very minimal resistance.
Good point.
Yes, it's an excellent point, Deepak. We're coming up to time, unfortunately, so I've got plenty more questions that we could ask. So I think I'm probably going to invite you both back for another session if you guys are happy to.
100%.
Only if I get to host next time.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to say, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Deepak, for your time today. That was very enlightening. I hope our listeners have learned a lot. I'm sure they have. But where can they go to find out more?
I guess probably the first instance, given that this is going out to your contact base, would be to connect with either their Natilic account manager or yourself directly, Ash. There's a ton of information on the ThousandEyes website, of course. If any of those guys are already known to Deepak and I, feel free to reach out to us too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to wrap up, please do get in touch with Natilic. We are running a ThousandEyes 90-day free trial campaign for our Meraki customers. So for those that don't have the advanced security or the SD-WAN license that Deepak mentioned, certainly we can help you adopt ThousandEyes capability within the Meraki platform, and help those that already do have the capability but haven't adopted it today. We're here to help. So to do that, please visit our website. That's www.natilic.com, and you can find out more information there. And with that, thank you very much for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks all.